now shifting into the third part of this segment, we are going to talk about the fundraising journey, which I'm sure all of you have questions on, since that was the majority of questions that we got. Let's just run through a little bit about, what your fundraising journey has been like. You said that at the outset that you did not build a brand and like immediately start fundraising. It took time for you to do that. So would love to get a better sense as to how you are, you thought about your process, and where are you now?
Yes. So my fundraising journey began in 2015 when I decided that I knew I could make products behind the brand name Jane West, and I drew out the signature logo for the first time. And I could picture that logo on products, and I could very clearly picture in my head the products that I wanted to design, but I wasn't sure how I was going to make them a reality. And so at that point in time, I found an angel investor, and I guess I feel like I got lucky, but I think that's how everyone feels when you find that angel investor that writes you a check. And it was a small check, and it was at a low valuation because I just had a piece of paper. I had an idea on a piece of paper, but it was enough to know that he was a private investor from New York City, super connected in the product design world, and it was enough to know that he believed that I should get this check and should start making these products. That was a huge confidence booster for me at the time. And so he was additive in terms of being able to make some introductions to me to product designers who helped me really dial down very quickly on how much it would cost to make the products that I wanted to design. Because how was I going to raise money if I couldn't tell someone how much money I needed to make the things I wanted to make? So that took like 6 months, getting through like, this is what I make, how are we going to make it, what are the materials we should be making it out of, what's the price per unit, creating a 3D design, and then getting a quote back from our manufacturer who was in China as to how we would do it. Then extrapolating from that, how many units I want to make, and I figured from there, from that we figured out how many units I wanted to make. We decided it would cost about $600,000 to make 5 completely unique separate products and have them designed, manufactured, packaged, imported into the US, and landed here ready for distribution. And so I took that number and I doubled it because it just seemed like the right thing to do. And we set out to raise $1.2 million. And so it was a really good time. I think timing has a lot to do with being successful in your raise. And people were very open to investing in cannabis, but then also I was a safer alternative at the time because I was just making things that weren't actually infused with cannabis yet. And so I was very dedicated to building a diverse cap table from my lessons with Women Grow, from my master's degree education and things I did prior to cannabis. It was really important that I'm building this business exactly the way I want to. There's no reason to be working on this every day of my life, every second I can, mostly, if I'm not doing it exactly the way I want to. So that definitely lengthened the fundraising process, but I ended up with 22 investors who all wrote checks varying from $15K to $500,000. And we raised the capital, and my company is 80% held by women and people of color. And we've just kept there would be something that I wanted to do that I needed to close a little more capital. And because I was so clear about what I wanted to do, I was so clear about my use of funds, it made it easier to close the money because it was very clear what we would be building next, what product we'd be making next, how we were going to use it, and why it was important, and why our audience wanted it. So that's how we've really become such a solid and well-known products company, is that we're listening to the audience, we're adjusting and developing products for them, and then getting them right there in front of the key customer demographic in dispensary shelves and in smoke shop shelves.
Wow. So you were very programmatic and thoughtful about each step of the way.
Yes.
Which is...
Well, then I found Republic. I want to be clear. So then after we got the round closed, I the cannabis industry had become more advanced. And, by that time now they're trading stocks in Bay Street and everybody is an expert in everything. And it was a very different time by the time I hit like 2017. And that was when I found Republic. So Republic was founded in 2016 and I started raising money in 2015. And the idea that I could raise money from a crowd of people who know, like, and trust my brand was not an option when I started. So as soon as I learned more about equity crowdfunding, how it really works, that was what really got, like, I was so excited about having my next round be on Republic. And the first round we did in 2018, we raised 189K from 550 investors in 17 countries. And the biggest value it brought the brand wasn't just the capital coming in or the fact that I could have my family and friends and my parents and my colleagues and my next door neighbor and the teenager that mows my lawn and all the people invest in my company, but actually they're all along for the ride with Republic. Like every last person at whatever amount they wanted to invest were able to put money into the company. So that to me was one of the biggest wins. But by the end of the first campaign, what I really learned was that Republic was an amazing way to teach a whole audience of people of who I am, what I'm building, and what every single one of my products looks like. And so, we had tens of thousands of people come to our landing page and learned all about the company while the campaign was live. And that still happens to this day because the deal page remains live. And we've gotten amazing business connections from it. And we built our network like immensely. So far in this round, we're in 42 countries. And so the idea that, someone had to go to Republic and read about my business and look at a picture of every single one of my products to decide that they wanted to invest in my company. So yes, maybe they don't smoke, maybe right now, maybe they don't consume cannabis, edible, or anything else right now, but they've decided to invest. And so that is such a unique and incredibly valuable touch point for building the brand. And so it is why, as soon as we were done with the first campaign, I was like, okay, that we are doing more equity crowdfunding. That was amazing. Also, it speaks to the fact that, I think one of the biggest issues with raising money from VCs is the amount of effort you put into impressing one person. Or two people, whatever. But so much effort and energy into talking one person into believing in you. And I would rather lose some people, but talk to a whole giant audience. And so that's another thing that I'd rather invest my time in building a deal page for equity crowdfunding than building another financial model for someone. So.
I love that. And apparently people on IG do too. Apparently this rings very true on that front. So I guess 2 more questions and then we'll go to the crowd here. So guys, please make sure that whether IG or in the Zoom, please make sure to put in questions that you may have. But the last 2 is one about just what makes a good crowdfunding campaign, in your mind. You clearly have some sort of community around you. You have other, people that support you. You probably had checks lined up. But in your opinion, what makes that successful? And then we'll go to the last one, which has to do about, women and being a woman in cannabis.
Awesome. Well, ultimately for me, I'm a brand. I'm building a brand here. So what matters is that a week from now or a month from now, people remember who I am and what I'm doing. Because if they don't have that, then I don't know how you explain what you had just done to be valuable. So that, to me, is what describes a successful campaign, is to have so many people read about what you're doing in a way that isn't really marketing. When I think back on it, I think about the other deal pages I read on Republic in December getting my deal page ready. And I remember every one of those businesses and the founder and what they do and how they do it, because there's something about reading a deal page that helps you kind of process what that company really is in a way that's very different than marketing, buy, joins. It's different. And so, so that is what really, to me, what makes equity crowdfunding so valuable is the fact that you are building a brand and people without maybe realizing it, are spending a lot of time learning about your product and why it's great. And if they agree with you, then you've probably like earned an audience member for a lot longer than a passing ad.
See, that fills my heart always, because
Sure.
guys, I also work for Republic, so
Yeah.
both ways. But the last question is really about standing out as a woman, as like, well, one, what are some of the biggest struggles you've had as a woman in cannabis? But two, like, when you're the only woman in the room, like, what are the hacks that help you be heard, respected, establish a feeling of belonging? All those things I think could be really helpful for the listeners today.
Yes. So being a woman in cannabis has changed, but I do believe that if you're trying to start a business in a nascent market where it's not quite readily available, like here in Colorado, we have over 500 dispensary storefronts for the number of people who live in New York. So, you know, it's very commonplace. There's a pizza, a dry cleaner, a dispensary, a liquor store, and a mini mall. It's great. So, being a woman in cannabis in the beginning, and so in a lot of places where it's just starting right now, was really hard because it's such a male-dominated field, and many of those connections existed from like early gray market beginnings. So it's not even like you can come in from the outside and be like, okay, who are the players here? Who's the person I need to talk to? What's going on around here? Because it just wasn't even ever written down or clear. And so but I think that this is true with all industries, as far as I can tell. I mean, I'm having a hard time finding one that's not. As like being on this journey has learned me, I've learned a lot about like importing, exporting, manufacturing, and you know, every single sector I'm dipping my toe into, it is really a male-dominated field. And so, I think you just have to find your people. One of the things that I think I've learned over time, and my perspective has changed on this, but I think when I was in my late 20s, my early 30s, I was convinced that I could like inspire people to change their mind. Like if I could see they weren't quite getting it or didn't quite see the world the way I was seeing it, like I could probably change their mind. And I kind of have given up on that, honestly. I found that in the past couple of years, as I've just found my audience and built stronger connections with people who already see my power, I do not have to change for them. I do not have to alter like my presentation feedback is a gift, don't get me wrong, but just my answer is, I think you need to really focus on finding your own audience, as opposed to trying to build something in a system that's already been built without you being an integral part of it. And as difficult as that has been for me to do, because I feel like I did that with Republic, like doing something very different. One of the only cannabis companies that's raising money this way. It was very challenging. I didn't have anyone to turn to be like, hey, how did you do this? Because I don't know, maybe people did. But it is worth it, because those connections and the support that I received from the people who I knew got me right away is unending. It's there and I can count on it. And I think when you need so hard to convince someone that you're the right thing, then that should show you that it's not the right fit.